He's going. Okay. Yeah, so you know the show. You know what's gonna
I
happen.
do know the show. I've watched literally every single episode of the show because I'm the one who timestamps them and puts them on YouTube and the blog.
Thank you so much. If I haven't thanked you enough in the past, I'm thanking you now.
Thank you.
The show would not be what it is without you, seriously.
Well, thank you. I mean, it wouldn't exist without you. So, and I really enjoy your style, and I'm so excited to be on the show. Having watched all of them, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome. I love what you've done with season 2, and that you take your favorite portion of the conversation and put it there, and then have everything time-stamped so people can go right to what it is. That's a leap above where we were for season 1.
Thanks.
And I can't wait to see what happens for season 3 too. I know I've been talking an awful lot about what I envision it to be going forward. We'll see what it is. You know,
absolutely.
Resources and location.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I know it's got the ideas, so I'm looking forward to getting into that. And yeah, it's fun to timestamp because I find even I want to go back and listen to like portions, especially season 1. There was so much amazing knowledge dropped. And it's like, I want to go back and listen to that again. So it's been really helpful for me even to be able to go back to that one section and like, oh yeah, that's what they said, take little notes.
That's what I loved about season 1. I wrote every episode,
right.
And it kept my knowledge fresh. Now with interviews, I feel like, I don't have to do my homework and I can just sit back and have a conversation.
That's nice. Yeah.
But I kind of miss doing the research. It was awful fun doing that.
Definitely.
How we looking over here, boss? 2 and 2. All right. What do you say we start the show?
That sounds good.
Okay. Welcome everybody to our next episode of The Feels, live here on Facebook and Instagram. My name is Jeff Rowse. My guest today on episode 9, a very important person. You probably recognize her if you pay any kind of attention to our blog, the lovely Miss Kristen Williams. Kristen, thank you so much for being on our program.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. But before we get to the questions, let's get to the news. And we're going to be singularly topicked here about our news today. And this is all about thank yous. Thank you to everybody that showed up at our 1-year anniversary, our block party. We would not be here without everybody that was there today. Our patients, our vendors, our first timers. Thank you all so much. Specifically, I need to thank Old Town Donuts, Hout Shots, that was that 360 thing, Matrix-like thing over there. Smokies, Max's Meats, just up the building. Lucky Canine Rescue, guys, you broke my heart twice with those puppies. Can't wait to do it. I know, I want a dog. Please find some hypoallergenic ones if you can. All right, also want to thank Playful Paints Face Painting, Tornadoes Twists. That was the young man that was making those lanyards and bracelets out there in the parking lot. Thank you to the Smoking Lion Reggae Band. You guys were awesome. What little I got to hear of you. I was indoors all day, so when the door opened, I got to hear a couple of bars. You are awesome. Also want to thank Ace, the girl from space, KDHX. She was DJing there herself. Amy Joy Pottery, Earth Sprouts Plants, The Abundant Lotus, 314 Garden Supply. Mary was a guest on our last episode of Fields before we took the Memorial Day break. The City of Florissant, thank you so much for letting us have our event in the parking lot. Want to also thank Mo Dank, a Red Circle, and finally, Robust. Those are those red shirts you saw walking around out in the parking lot. That is the ownership group of this dispensary's brand of flower, Chanel 5. I described it this way, Kristen. It felt like a warm blanket in between the inside of my skull and the top of my brain.
Okay, I like that description.
I loved it. And I think we're going to jump right in with a cannabis question based off of that. Tell me about the first time that you used cannabis. What was the experience like?
So, the first time I used cannabis, I was totally against cannabis growing up. Let me just disclaim that. And like, I was straight and narrow. I like left a party once because there was alcohol there. I was too good.
Straight
too good
edge?
for school. Yeah, straight edge.
Okay.
Dare had me. And it was in college whenever I had a friend back in high school at home. I went away to Kirksville, Truman State University, and I live in Columbia for context. And I had a friend who was still in high school, and he was getting in trouble at school for cannabis. He was like getting pulled out of class because he smelled like weed. And I came back one weekend to give him a stern talking to, let him know that that's like, what are you doing? You're ruining your life. And he ended up lecturing me about how I didn't know what I was talking about. I really needed to do my own research and try it for myself. He was like, you're high strung, Kristen. You got that whole perfectionist thing going on. I see you stressed out all the time. Maybe this could help you too. And I was like, you know what? This is someone I really trust. Like, I trusted him so much and knew he wouldn't lead me astray. And so I did the research, got some flour, tried it. And I mean, I was on like my lake house porch, my family's lake house porch, and it was the first time my mind ever went quiet. Like, I didn't even realize that I had anxiety, that I was going a million miles a minute in my brain all the time. And it was just this moment of like, oh my gosh, like this is what I can feel like. This is what other people exist like. And it was such a freeing moment. And I'll never forget that time. And it was just so relaxed and like so happy, so present, not worrying about like things that I needed to be doing or worrying about how I had done something in the past. I was present for like the first time in my life.
Is there a certain cannabinoid or terpene profile that works best for you?
So I really like stuff that has at least a little bit of CBD in it. Everybody's all THC frenzied, of course. And, you know, whenever I first started out, I looked for those THC percentages, and the more I learned, the more I was like, you know what? CBD, and the more I tried things, having at least a little bit of CBD in there really helps me. And I'll go up to the 1-to-1s. 1-to-1s, like for daytime use, is best for me. I mean, I get migraines, I have chronic like upper back and neck pain, and that stuff, just the 1-to-1 really helps me be able to push past all of that, or, you know, not feel that and be able to focus on my work or whatever I need to be doing without getting too like woozy or
and
like
we're talking
woozy.
Flower here?
Yeah, and really anything, like any like I love the ratio mints. Those are my favorite right now, the little microdose 2.5 milligrams THC, 2.5 CBD together. I mean, I took like a couple of those before this because I have anxiety about being on camera and like social anxiety, and like I take them at events and it just makes me so much more calm and in my body, but I'm not in that place where I'm like worried if people are gonna think that I'm high or I'm gonna be awkward. It's just, I really drop in and it is so beneficial. So beyond that, like Purple Kim has been the like chemovar that I just like. I haven't bought anything else except for Chanel number 5 over the weekend, but ever since I had Purple Kim, I'm like, nope, I'm sticking with that. And I think it's limonene, caryophyllene, and linalool, and that combo. I mean, I look for those specifically now in every product I pick up.
See, I'm really glad you found something that works for you and stick with it. It's very tempting for a lot of patients when they go to a dispensary to see the breadth of products of, I want that, and
Right.
You don't do that when you go to a pharmacy. If you take aspirin because it helps with your headache, do you take another product because it's got a pretty box and you go, let's see what this works like?
I'm guilty of that sometimes, but
I think we all are. We've all been caught up in packaging before.
for sure.
But I'm really glad that you found something that works for you. Okay, let's pivot a little bit. We all know you from Feel State's blog. You put out some amazing blog posts. You help us so much here on the Feels getting that all put together. But that's not the only hat that you wear. You also have your own business called Hempsley.
That is true.
Yeah, tell me, what inspired you to create Hempsley?
Well, like I said, I was on that straight and narrow path, and once I found that cannabis could be this thing that dropped me into my body, I started using it recreationally on the weekends because, you know, good kids didn't smoke weed. But the more I started using it, the more I realized it was really helping me take better care of myself. I was eating better because it was fun to cook and it made vegetables taste better. And I was exercising. I would get up and move because I was in design school. And so I was like sitting at the computer all the time. So it would just remind me to like get up and move my body, whether that was a little mini dance session or like going on a walk, or I went through a running phase. I hate running, but it was a phase. And I noticed that it was so beneficial, and I started incorporating it more into my self-care routine, right? And then I heard the story of Charlotte Figge, the little girl having 300 grandma seizures a week. And my heart just broke at the thought of people trying to take this medicine away from this little girl, or sending her parents to prison for simply trying to help her. And I've always like had a soft spot for activism and like kids especially. And I was studying design, and I decided, you know what, maybe the way I can help is by doing cannabis design and help giving these companies coming onto the market like a professional face and lend them credibility through the power of design, because I really believe in the power of design. I mean, I could go on and on about that. And so I started doing freelance work for companies all over the country and traveling. And the more I traveled and experienced these events, the more I realized there was this huge gap between legal and prohibition markets, especially in Missouri, because not even CBD was allowed to be sold in Missouri at that time. And we're talking 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I was learning, I really wanted to help bring this education back to my own community in Columbia. And essentially, I was trying to get involved in like the legalization efforts, right? And I was told that the ways I could do that was like fundraising or gathering petition signatures. And I tried both and failed miserably. I was terrible. And I was like, what's another way I could do this? And
Not a lot of design and gathering signatures
no,
either.
it's like there's no creativity in that. And I tried. And I decided, maybe how I can help is by educating, so that when it does come to a vote, people maybe know how to vote. They're more inclined to vote to legalize it, at least for medicinal use at first. And so I was like, how do I educate? And at the time, there weren't any resources that I felt comfortable sending my grandma or my neighbor down the street to that weren't gonna make me look like a stoner or a pothead. And, it was like High Times and Dope magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really created Hempsley just as this way to communicate. I designed it for the Midwest. I also noticed in designing that there were not really any brands for the small town lifestyle. It was all like geared towards mountain people or beach life or big cities. Like that's what all the marketing was around, because that's where the cannabis was legal. It made sense, but how do we show how cannabis can look in a healthy, responsible lifestyle in the Midwest? And that's really what I wanted to bring forth. So I focused Hempsley on CBD specifically because I thought it was this really beautiful bridge for that gap. And now we've started talking about other things, and the partnership with Feel State has been so beneficial because it allows me to go deep into like cannabis stuff without having it be just Hempsley, because Hempsley is really about the endocannabinoid system. I mean, that was the thing that changed how I viewed the entire plant when I was doing that initial research. After that, my friend told me, hey, learn about it and see. And I was like, oh, wow, like I have this whole system. And I wanted to bring that forth and showcase cannabis. Yeah.
Hempsley initially started out just as educational. So was it blog
Yes.
posts, long form written articles, things of that nature?
Short form. I actually try to keep everything between 500 and 800 words at about a 5th grade reading level, because I want it to be accessible and approachable to all audiences. I want it to be your first stop, something that gets you intrigued, brings you in, and then I point you towards the experts that really know their stuff. So, when it comes to cannabis, point them towards Feel State. Go watch my videos over there to get the more in-depth about cannabinoids. So it just, and it also recipes and DIYs, because I love hands-on activities that applies the knowledge you're learning, right? So at first we did a lot of workshops. I would partner with other local businesses and come into their spaces and do some kind of workshop that was geared towards what they had. So whether that was like the chiropractic office, and we created like hands-on massage oil, and you could infuse it with CBD. So all of the DIYs.
Products. That was my next question.
Yep.
When did the products start to come on Hempsley? Because you have quite a wealth of products available.
We do, and actually if you click into them, you'll notice that they're affiliate links. So we're actually phasing out inventory. In 2019, after the 2018 Farm Bill, we decided that we would move into an office and take on inventory. I didn't want to sell CBD out of my basement or my car. I thought that wasn't in line with the image I wanted to put out with Hempsley, and the credible face I was trying to provide. And so we just were affiliate links before that, but we were like really struggling with how do I monetize this education. And our affiliate links were doing so well. It was like, let's bring on inventory. Well, that created all kinds of problems, because selling CBD online is really, really hard, and finding a processor. I mean, we went through so many processors. I built like 6 websites because not all the processors integrate with the same website platforms, and it was just a nightmare. And so now we've converted over to Shopify, and they have this really cool plugin that allows you to replace the buy now link with a shop on link. So I still have the ability to go browse our shop. You can sort by terpene, you can sort by herb, you can sort by cannabinoid profile, and I want to really start curating tons, like hundreds of products there, so that you can, after you learn about all these cool things, oh, maybe I want to try linalool, you can find products with linalool in it, and we help facilitate that, and really curating businesses that are doing it right, because we considered creating our own CBD line, but it's hard. That's hard, and that's not where I wanted my energy to go. I wanted it to go into general education, and I decided there were so many people doing it the right way. Let's just lift them up. Let's give them a voice and a platform.
And you don't have to warehouse a ton of products either.
Exactly. It's such an investment. I mean, I fund everything, myself. So.
All right. Well, you obviously sound like an incredibly busy and yet successful person. What would you say are 3 traits that you have that help you achieve your success?
Traits. Well, I mean, let's see. I guess.
Is that a baseball,
habits,
not a softball?
Habits. Habits was on your list. You said traits.
Okay. So I did. I shaved on the fly.
For
Okay.
habits.
So let's talk habits then. What are your 3 most successful habits?
Okay. So habits. One of my biggest habits that I've had, I have this ring on my finger, and especially through the pandemic, I take it off every night and I put it on every morning, and it's kind of my signal, because especially working from home by myself, sometimes you don't change out of your PJs when you work from your bed, and so putting my ring on has been such a good indicator. It's just kind of that signal to myself to transition from
time to go to work.
Right. And also, I work in my bedroom, so it's like putting things away at the end of the day, putting my computer in another room, closing it up, has been really beneficial. Another habit has been stretching before bed, because that was something that I haven't always done. And if I'm really feeling like I need extra support, I'll give myself a self-massage. It was a practice I learned when I was an intern for an Ayurvedic coach, and it's called Abhyanga. It's like a warm oil self-massage, and it has it's given me so much. It really relaxes my body, allows me to fall asleep and get really deep, restful sleep, even if I'm only gonna sleep 4 or 6 hours because of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I forget what my last habit that I planned to say was.
That's okay. Well, let's talk about, so you have these habits, sounds like a lot of them. You got some before you go to bed,
Yes.
some in the morning.
Yes.
What's a typical day like for you?
So a typical day looks a little bit different, because I do Reiki, so I do energy healing. I also do graphic design, and then I'm also working on my own business. And so I try to block my days. So a design day will look like I get up in the morning, and I like to have slow mornings. I like to, that was my other habit. I read in the morning rather than touch my phone. I pull out my book and read for 15 to 20 minutes before I get on my device. And so I do that, and then I like to do a little bit of stretching, a little meditation, maybe a workout if I'm feeling like I have time. And then I will settle in and actually do a little bit of my own Reiki practice to kind of just get grounded and tune into the energy of whatever I'm going to be doing that day. And then my design days go for 8 to 10 hours straight. I'm just working, and I love that. I love getting into the creative flow and just totally flowing, creating this container to absolutely flow in. So that's what Sundays look like. And then at the end of the day, I'm closing everything down. Other days it's responding to emails, running errands, doing little tasks. I mean, I've learned to put rest first. I'm gonna turn 30 this month, and that was a big lesson for me, is if you don't rest, you burn out, because I have burnt out more than once, and I'm committed to not doing that to myself anymore. So, myself comes first, rest, and then my clients, and then my passion project, Hempsley.
Let's talk a little bit about your relationship with Feel State.
Okay.
How did that partnership begin? Was it the creation of the patient guidebook, or was there a smaller kernel?
It was actually our How to Not Get High with Cannabis series. And if you haven't seen that, you should check it out. There's 6 different episodes. And I had that idea for a while, and they came to me saying, would you want to partner on some content? And I was like, well, I've had this idea. What do you think? And they were all for it. Because
they found you.
Yeah, well, we had connected, but they had reached out originally, probably a year in advance, actually. And we had just maintained our relationship. We had met, they came to my office, and we met, and I just loved what they were doing, and great energy. And I just love how they go about building relationship, because it wasn't like they came in and asked me for anything. It was we think you're cool, how can we support you? And that was it, and we kept in touch. And then they reached out, and I kept up with them and saw them at events and things. And so we did this How to Not Get High with Cannabis series, and there's about 6 different things, and then it rolled into little short 1-minute videos. One of our most popular has been how to light and ash a joint. And I thought it was like kind of a silly video idea at the time, but it's gotten a lot of positive feedback on YouTube and people really appreciate. And I know it's something that whenever I first started smoking and I was in a group, it was like, oh my gosh, I have such anxiety about lighting this joint. They're like, light the joint. I'm like, nah, I'll let you do that, but like ashing it and all of that. So it was really fun to create those types of things. And then it was the guidebook, and then that rolled into, hey, do you want to do some design work for real estate?
So where does the inspiration come from then?
For all the content?
Yeah, because you're constantly putting out content.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the questions that I'm getting asked and the things that I'm curious about, because I didn't start using cannabis until I was in college, so I feel like I am kind of this newbie to the industry, and so the things, it's still very like new to me, and so being able to tune into that, like, what did I not know, what was I curious about? And then I also have people coming to me all the time, and I love that. I love that people trust me to come and ask me questions, and these are questions that multiple people have, so it's like, why not capitalize on that and make content out of that so that more people can learn from it as well. And so that's really the energizing force behind it.
Okay. How do you stay on top of cannabis industry trends?
So I hate saying Instagram, but like Instagram is a place where I follow my little community, freelancing for companies all over. I met lots of really cool people that are doing really cool things, and following and keeping up with them is really beneficial. I also subscribe to like Greenway for Missouri updates. I subscribe to Normal and their updates. There's a really cool like marketing person, Jesse Grillo, and I subscribe to his emails, and he puts out like marketing industry reports pretty frequently. So I really enjoy reading through his stuff.
Have you checked out Marijuana Moment?
No.
MarijuanaMoment.net. That's how I keep myself fresh.
Okay.
They put out articles every day. This one guy, he must put out 4 articles every day. I don't know how he does it.
Wow.
But I've got also a flipboard that I do, but this isn't about me. Okay, let's go back to the questions here. So we were talking about resources. So what other resources do you use that some of our viewers could actively use to increase their own knowledge about cannabis?
Well, resources, I mean, I love Healer CBD and Dr. Sulak's content. That's also someone that I follow. And so getting on just his website, I mean, he's got so many free ebooks. He's such an inspiration for all these free downloads and things. And there's tons of free content that he puts out, as well as, I think it's like once a month lives that he does on Zoom. So I've sat in on some of those. That's a great resource. I also, resource-wise, I mean, Broccoli. I don't know if you've heard of Broccoli Magazine.
I subscribe to Broccoli.
I love them so much. Anya, I got to meet her out in Oregon once, and she was so brilliant, and I just loved what she was doing with bringing, art into the cannabis world. And they have a podcast, Broccoli Talk, and they interview some really cool people, and it's always cannabis friendly, but also like dives outside of cannabis too. And so it's just a really cool resource for like inspiration on how to bring things into the sphere. So those are some of my favorites.
All right. Let's see. What would you say are some challenges that you have had to overcome?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? The biggest challenge was that CBD payment processor. I mean, we moved into our office January 2019, and I was like, this will be no problem. We're just gonna set up a website and it'll be fine. Well, turns out as we went to apply for a CBD payment processor, I think it was Elevon, they decided to cut CBD businesses, and there were about 10,000 CBD businesses that already had years of processing history also looking for a payment processor. The requirements for us to get a payment processor was like $100,000 worth of processing history. It was crazy fees. I mean, we're talking like up to 15% plus a rolling reserve, which I don't know if you know what that is. But
couldn't you just use Square or one of those?
Nope, Square was not CBD friendly. You got kicked off of everything. And we built our original website on Squarespace, and they only work with Stripe. Stripe is the only processor that'll plug in, and Stripe shut us down immediately. Like you couldn't do it. And so we had like Hempsley.com and shophempsley.com, and they were separate, and that created all kinds of SEO issues because here we are getting all this traffic on Hempsley.com, but nobody's actually clicking over. And that was my own, like, I hadn't learned how to properly link things and all of that. It's all a learning curve, right? But that was the biggest hurdle. And so now we finally are on Shopify, and because I went through literally probably 6 shop websites, and it just changed. And at one point Square finally did, okay, we're going to offer CBD processing, but you had to be invited. You had to know someone who already was in. You had to be invited. So we got that.
Kind of elitist.
And it still took like 2 months to go through the process. And then we were using them. Everything's running along fine and dandy. And all of a sudden, our money gets frozen. And they're like, we've decided that you don't comply with the education, because we're education. Like, I'm not going to sacrifice the education to be able to have the CBD on our website, right? And so essentially, and all our social media too, they were like, your social media is unacceptable. And so
this is a legal product.
I
The
know,
2018 Farm Bill legalized it.
They're so scared of the federal government. These banks and processors, right?
What's going to happen when the Farm Bill gets rewritten in a year?
I mean, hopefully
I guarantee you they're going to close the synthetic loophole that has allowed Delta 8, Delta 10, and all of those other isomers out there. But that's also going to close the loophole on the really beneficial minor cannabinoids like CBN, CBG.
Absolutely. It's a big mess. It's a big problem. I mean, I had to literally shut down, I just pulled down all of my social media sites for 5 days for us to get our money back. And then I found a new processor. Thankfully, my mentor at 420 Science had connected with a processor and connected me, and they've been amazing. Maverick. If anyone needs a processor, please reach out and I will be happy to connect you because I understand your pain. And I mean, they've been great. So it all worked out. But yeah, we did have to and I just had to make a notice on my personal accounts, this is what's happening. I have to pull everything down so we can get this money out. And then I just closed the account and put everything back up, and I think I got an email that was kind of what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm done. I got kicked off Venmo permanently. They'll never let me back on Venmo. Someone paid for CBD and put CBD with a green heart in the memo, and that was that. So those have been some of the biggest hurdles, absolutely, along with just the mental struggle that comes with all of that. I was a good kid. I'm not used to getting scolded, and to be scolded constantly, it was such an internal battle for me to work through, honestly. And yeah, it's been a journey.
But cannabis helps you with that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's see. Wow, we've blown through all the questions that I had written down. So we're going to turn to the one Corey gave us. Thank you, Corey, for that. Didn't think I was going to need them. All right. Let's see. We've tried that. Okay. What is the favorite thing that you have learned about terpenes? I know you like posting videos about the different terps.
I mean, I find it fascinating that the terpenes will act differently based on the cannabinoids they're present with, right? So if it's with THCV, I think it's limonene, or it create, it's an appetite suppressant. Yes, that is so cool to me. And yet if you use just limonene with just THC CBD, I definitely get hungry, so it's just so cool to learn about how these different combinations can create more targeted effects. So that's been absolutely my favorite thing to learn about terpenes.
Did you know that, of course you saw the episode, rubber, latex, those are also terpenes.
Yep.
I just ordered it. It's called the Big Book of Terps.
Oh, cool.
It's this big, that thick paperback, 500 plus pages.
Wow.
And it's only maybe 20, 30 terpenes plus about 7 or 8 flavonoids.
So real in depth about those.
Real in depth, boiling points, et cetera, and then it's written out like a textbook. There are quizzes at the end for you to take.
Wow.
It's really cool. I'm going to make sure everybody here gets a chance to have a look at it. So what is your favorite terp then?
I would have to say limonene, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, It depends on the time of day and what I'm doing, because I do like the more linalool heavy at night. I went through a phase where, and it wasn't until I watched your Feels episode, where I was like getting cold. My hands and feet were getting cold after smoking Purple Kim.
Yep.
And once I watched that, I was like, oh, and it's actually faded. I don't really have that anymore. But that was really eye-opening for me. But yeah, like linalool at night, for sure. Purple Kim is my wind down strain, or cultivar. I'm still working on replacing that in my vocabulary. But yeah, and then limonene for the day. Like if I need to be energized, especially during my like creative flow days, just that little like help of creativity. And I love actually concentrates. I have asthma, and so smoking is actually really can be problematic for me. The flower that I use, I have a volcano vaporizer. I'm very grateful to have that
Old
amazing
school
machine. Oh yes, it's not my favorite aesthetically, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it's not that much fun to hang onto a big inflated plastic bag.
It's not. It's not cute, but it's a great method of consumption. I mean, it's beautiful and it's so good, and especially Purple Kim. Like there have been strains that really flare up my asthma. Terpenoline, I can't do terpenoline. Like anytime I buy something, I have to check and make sure it doesn't have that. I won't even buy stuff anymore that doesn't have the terpene profile because of that. Because it, like, I can't breathe. I have some purple tonic that has the terpenoline, and that was whenever I really realized that that's what was causing it, and I still have some of this left.
Have you found you've had access to certificates of analysis, COAs, so that you can double check these products that you're purchasing?
No. But I also haven't honestly asked for like the full terpene profile. So I just check whatever they have printed on the label, which I know is the top ones. But that's also why I don't stray too far from the things I find that I like. So when it comes to concentrates, the Lush Labs Wedding Cake Crasher rosin, oh my gosh, game changer.
That's what my last bowl of the night is always a relaxing bowl with a little bit of hash right in the center. And as I corner, it just evenly distributes. Nice. And a half an hour after I'm done with the bowl, I'm yawning and I'm in bed and I can sleep through the night. Wow. Maybe that 3 a.m. bathroom break, but I can sleep through the night without that restlessness that I usually have. Wow. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's see. How are we doing? Do we have any questions from the audience out there?
We had 2 questions. One was from Robert. He said, "Hi, Santa Claus."
Hi, Robert. I hope you're still watching. If not, it's your bedtime, young man.
And the other was, somebody asked, can you overdose from THC?
You want to take that?
You cannot. Okay, overdose is a lousy term. Because when you use it, your mind automatically goes to Schedule I drugs like heroin and cocaine, and you think the most awful things. But in the cannabis industry, we do talk about dosing an awful lot. And yes, you can overdose on cannabis, but it's not going to kill you. You're going to overstimulate your endocannabinoid system. And when you do that, sometimes you can bring on uncomfortable side effects. Anxiety, paranoia, that's where that whole paranoid thing came from. You overstimulated your endocannabinoid system.
Yeah, and like that biphasic dosing response curve, it's this bell-shaped curve. And so past that peak point of balance, which is your perfect dose, you start to encounter that stuff. And I remember my friends, I think it was like my 24th birthday, they made me this gorgeous plate of weed brownies for my birthday cake. And I ate so many of them. And I'm not kidding, I was high for 3 days. Like it was such an overdose and it was so uncomfortable. We went to a grow tour. It was out in Colorado and I fainted at the grow tour. It was humiliating. I don't even remember. Like I remember being in there for like a split second and I remember waking up and everyone like around me, but like we didn't do the grow tour because I had to go home and I like don't remember those days. And it was just, they tasted so good. And it was, you know, early on in my understanding of cannabis, and my friends didn't realize either, they put a whole ounce in the brownies. Because that's what the bud tender had said, what's her tolerance level? And they were like, oh, pretty high because we dab. Edibles are so different. Boy. It was bad. It was very, very bad. So like you can definitely overdose in that way. But even I was high for 3 days, but I'm fine. Like I'm still a totally functional person. After those 3 days, I was fine. But it's not fun at all.
No, not at all. Okay. Hope that answered the question for you. I don't think we have any more questions. How are we doing on time? 7 minutes.
7 o'clock, baby.
7 o'clock? Holy cow, that went by fast. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up then for us.
Sounds good. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
This is fun.
I really appreciate you being here. You are an incredibly huge part of our show and getting it together for everybody to get out there and consume. So thank you for all of your hard work and effort that you do. Next week, we are going to be having one of the co-owners of the Feel State Florissant dispensary, Tyler Hannigan. We're going to talk an awful lot about Feel State. We're also going to talk about our new brand, Robust Flower. We're going to talk about living soil, hybrid greenhouses, kind certification, all kinds of fun stuff. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a good one.